would like to express my appreciation to you, Governor, for your words of positive introduction, and especially you and your team for co-organizing together with the IMF this excellent conference. It's a pleasure to be in Jakarta for all of us who have traveled here, and we certainly enjoy very much the moment to share views, compare notes, and take a little pause in the context of a little bit of turbulences that are coming from both East and West. The topic that was selected is very timely. You've indicated the reasons why. I think from an international perspective, having almost gone to the Addis Ababa conference in July, I couldn't go because of Greece at that time, but Addis Ababa was the conference that brought together many leaders and officials to actually focus on how development could be financed going forward. And it's certainly not to be confused with the sustainable development goals that will be set by the United Nations at the end of the year. But all of that really comes together. And as many leaders have indicated in Addis, and will no doubt indicate also in December at COP21, to deal with climate change, financing of all these initiatives is going to be crucial. It's all very well to pay lip service to the principles of development, but actually financing development is the core of the matter, and it's certainly one that brings us together here. Timely topic, and it reminds me of one quote that I like to use when we talk about getting the price right. Getting the price right is so critical. I would like on that note to actually really recognize and commend the huge move that was made by Indonesia in 2014 in eliminating subsidies and making sure that the price was right. These are times that try man's soul. This is something that Thomas Paine said back in the 18th century. And that particular first sentence is often quoted. But after that he said, "What we obtain too cheap, we esteem too lightly. It is dearness only that gives everything its value." Difficult to disagree with that, and in the context of getting the price right, very appropriate. But these words from 250 years ago by Thomas Paine remind us of the true worth of well-being in trying times. And indeed, financial markets, in a few short weeks, have underlined for us the value that we attach to financial stability and the efforts that we must make to preserve such stability. And that applies across the world, to advanced economies, to emerging markets, to low-income countries as well. What has been demonstrated in the last few weeks is also how much Asia is at the core of global economy, and how much disruptions occurring in one market in Asia can actually spill over to the rest of the world. And this is testimony to the extraordinary gains of the past generation. So much has happened. Some Asian countries have taken their full place amongst the advanced economies, to the point of dislodging some of them. Some have achieved emerging market status and are reaching higher. Others are still climbing the ladder of development, but together they have become a key source of global growth. And this whole region in the world is doing pretty well. You know, I have one good indicator for that. I asked my regional directors, my area directors, how many countries do you have under program? Well, when I asked Cheng Yong, the director of the Asia Pacific department, he's not too happy because he doesn't have many countries on the program. It used to be the case many years ago, but not anymore. Whereas the other regions of the world have many more countries under program. That's a little IMF indicator for me. So this region has given the world new vitality, and we're now faced with renewed volatility. So let me just say a few words about the current situation as we see it, and in that context, how Asia fares. This region knows from bitter past experience where turmoil can lead and how much population can suffer as a result. And in recent years, you, governors, policymakers, ambassadors, in your respective positions, you have used the experience of the Asian crisis to weather the global financial crisis in 2008 and the taper tantrum in 2013. By putting in place strong macroeconomic policies, strengthening your financial system, making sure that you have supervision in place and that you implement it, you have managed to withstand instability. Now the situation is changing yet again, and we are all feeling the impact of China's rebalancing and moving to a revised business model. We are facing Japan's continued slow growth, changing a bit, but still. And of course, we're all experiencing falling commodity prices, and on the top of it, we are all expecting the prospect of higher interest rates and the volatility that will inevitably result therefrom. You governments and the authorities present in the room, I'm sure, fully understand what needs to be done and are ready to take further action if needed. And of course, policies need to be tailored to each country's specificities, but we are fairly confident that in most cases it will include the following. 1, strengthening defenses with prudent fiscal policy. 2, reining in excessive credit growth. 3, and that's very relevant for the governors of central banks here, allowing the exchange rate to act as a shock absorber. 4, maintaining adequate foreign exchange reserves. And 5th, building up regulatory and supervisory oversight for the financial sector and making sure that it is fully budgeted and can actually implement its task. So at this conference, we are focusing on the financial sector issues that are essential to this policy mix. So allow me to simplify the matter for me and for you by using 4 I's. Not I's, we only have 2. 4 I's. Innovation, integration, infrastructure, and inclusiveness. So quickly on each one. I'll start with innovation. I mentioned yesterday with university students creativity. You don't need to be too creative in the financial sector. I think innovation will do. The Asia financial sector has already supported extraordinary levels of growth and itself has been transformed by the region's rapid rise. But finance needs to follow the example of Asian manufacturing, which has continually evolved towards higher value-added products and more cost-effective processes. So what we're talking here is financial deepening within countries. And that means a shift away from the traditional banking practices focused on deposit taking on the one hand, commercial lending on the other hand, generally to corporations. Deeper markets can actually help Asia benefit from new trade opportunities, boost the productivity of growing labor forces in some countries, and support the aging in others. For consumers, for the households, new financial services can provide home mortgages, automobile financing, insurance products, and pensions, as has occurred in some of the countries in the region. For business, Innovation means risk capital for startups and equity financing for expanding companies. It means expanding the role of bond and stock markets and enabling institutional investors to provide long-term financing, not to attract the hot money that goes in and out, but to attract longer-term investors. Now let me be clear. As I said, innovation is fine, creativity maybe no. I'm not calling for risky financing. That's not the purpose. Deeper financial systems can provide a shield against volatility, precisely. But they must also be well-regulated financial systems. And that means that the authorities, the supervisors, have to constantly remain vigilant, particularly when there are those new innovative products that provide so wonderful returns. They have to be checked, they have to be kept under control, they have to be regulated. And those risks have to be under the watch of the supervisors, be they in traditional banking, be they in these disruptive banking new systems, or in these shadow banking actors. That's for my first I, innovation. My second I is integration. I was talking about innovation within countries, under the supervisory control of the authorities. I'm here talking about expanding among and between countries, and that's where the financial integration comes into play. I'm talking about something which I know of a little bit because of my French finance minister's experience within the European market and within the Eurozone, which has itself tried to integrate better securities markets. And it's a difficult task. So when I'm saying more integration, I do that with great humility and understanding that this is a very difficult task. But clearly, more vital, better linked and interlinked regional financial linkages can help to overcome the legacy of fragmented and sometimes too small and not deep enough markets. And it can help build more synergy among financial institutions and capital markets. ASEAN, Governor, you just mentioned, a huge project to be completed this year and beyond. And certainly the enlargement of financial markets, the linkages between security and bond markets in the region could be good projects to work on with a view to providing better stability and more security and harmonization between regulations and greater coordination amongst the policymakers. It can only be to the benefit of those operators who want to go regional and want to secure funding from multiple sources without the risk of unnecessary and sometimes dangerous arbitrage, as can happen sometimes. Let's move to my third I, and I'll be brief on that one because you've said a lot, and it's infrastructure. We know that it's key to Asia's future for frontier economies. You talked about roads, you talked about the maritime roads, the linkages between the two. There's a lot of talk about railways. You talked about many seaports as well, supply of water, electricity, transportation. All of that is clearly going to help. And for those economies that are emerging markets, livable cities with proper public transport and advanced IT networks will help avoid the middle income trap. The ADB estimates that Asia's infrastructure needs will be $8.3 trillion over the next decade. Now, this will require government funding, no doubt about it, and I'm very impressed with the infrastructure program that has been launched by President Joko Widodo and the efforts that will be put in place, Mr. Minister, to actually finance and implement this program. It's critical, but it will not be sufficient. Let's face it. Public money has its limitations because you cannot, on the one hand, want to have and have a fiscal sound policy and yet finance infrastructure projects without limitation. And that's where PPP, the public-private partnership, can actually come into play, provided, as you rightly said, Governor, that it is efficiently managed, organized, financed, followed through, and can leverage actually the joint funding of public and private financing. My personal take on that is that it will also probably, for some of the biggest ones, require international institutions' involvement, if only to sort of be used as seed money or guarantee money that is so often needed in putting together the architecture of massive infrastructure projects. But that means, and that's where the policymakers again find a role, it means good governance, it means well-designed and transparent regulations. In many instances it means a bit more digital organization of those markets, completely open procurements, if only to make sure that the risk of corruptions is limited to the maximum possible extent. That now takes us to my fourth and final I, which is inclusion. And that really represents the human side of development. For all of the region's progress that we celebrate, and that you should all take pride in, nearly 350 million Asians still live in poverty. Most of them do not have a bank account. Many businesses have difficulty accessing bank loans and investment capital. Many live in the emerging markets, but are not part of that prosperity. And certainly the inequality, rightly or wrongly measured by the Gini index, is not improving, or rather it is improving, but not for the good of society, and certainly not for sustainable growth. So financial inclusion is not just a matter of products or regulation. It directly improves livelihoods, reduces poverty, and it is the provision of services and the creation of opportunities where there is inequality, inequality of income, inequality of gender, inequality of education, inequality in health. Low levels of financial inclusion in many countries are an obstacle to Asia's continued success. But there are exceptions. A country like Korea, for instance, has reached virtually 100% access to banking for its adult population. In other regions of the world, the same has been achieved, or almost the same. In Kenya, for instance, the use of combination of smart cards, mobile telephone, and banking system bundled together has given access to the banking system to roughly 80% of the Kenyan population. That's for the human side of it, but there is also a business case for promoting financial inclusion. At this conference, we will be discussing some of our research on financial deepening and inclusion, and we will preview research that we will soon release on the subject that is very interesting. It shows that greater access to financial services can indeed lead to higher growth and can be instrumental in advancing financial sector stability. There are some risks, as my colleagues will highlight in their presentation, but the benefits are far more important, and they're perfectly compatible with supervision. I would add that increasing the access of women to financial services has tremendous economic and social benefit. It is shown to stimulate growth. Moreover, we have yet another paper coming out on this topic ensuring that more women have leadership role in finance, and it demonstrates that it could actually support financial stability. That's good news. Now, I'm very impressed with the inclusion initiatives that we are seeing across Asia. And for example, I had a chance to discuss yesterday with the President of Indonesia his program to actually help young people, students, and people who normally do not have access to a lot of the welfare, health, or some cash services with a system that is digitally based And I have to say that the Indonesian government commitment to the principle of financial services to a wider population, as is also demonstrated in India in a very significant way and under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, are very encouraging signs if we are to believe the results of the research that we have conducted that clearly link better and more sustainable growth to deeper and better financial inclusion and inclusiveness not being limited by gender. So let me sum up briefly. We are facing a complex set of issues in which the financial sector, in our view, plays a critical role. It falls on us to actually work together to ensure this stability and this progress in spite of the complexity of the current economic situation. And I hope that the knowledge that we share, the discussion that we have in the course of this conference, the best practices that you bring from each and every place that you will be coming from and proposing from will help us actually improve that situation and participate to the future of Asia's finance for the better development of countries. I would like, before I finish, to flag that book, which will be presented later, and which is really focused very much on the future of Asian finance. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.